Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Melanie. This is Adventures in Hostessville, and welcome to episode 21 of the Vintage Magazine Project and the first week of the June 1972 Cosmopolitan. Ba-da-bum, ba-dum-bum, bum, ba-da-da-da-dum, ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So the article I want to take a look at today is called Cosmo's Cook-Ahead Summer Supper. Serves 4 and keeps them skinny, but tastes so good they won't realize it's low calorie. They say that I can prepare afternoon, evening, or day ahead, garnish and serve at party time. So let's have a party. If you want to grab a cocktail and make yourself dinner and eat along with me, that would be super fun. You don't even have to make this low-cal dinner. You could just have macaroni and cheese. Okay, so this dinner is this seafood salad. They said to get frozen shrimp, scallops, and frozen king crab meat. I looked in several grocery stores and they didn't have it frozen, so I just purchased one king crab leg, and these are super pokey. I have stabbed myself with this is dangerous. There is a lot of dieting that is happening in this magazine. Thank you to Pan Am for helping girl passengers keep their bikini figures en route to the tropics. Flights to the Caribbean now offer a Weight Watchers lunch. It's hard to imagine a more 1972 magazine article than something that includes both Weight Watchers and Pan Am. But you know, airlines are really going through a thing in 1972. We have hit what is now known as the golden age of skyjacking. 1968 to 1972, there are roughly 130 skyjackings or hijackings of planes in the United States. There are points in time where there are skyjackings like every week, like to the point where pilots on domestic flights are given directions on how to get to Cuba just in case. Ow, these are pokey. So it starts with a lot of people wanting to go to Cuba for various reasons, but then it starts to become more economical. And one of the reasons it does is that there is this skyjacker in 1971 who has come to be known as D.B. Cooper. They don't actually know who he is. You may have heard of him. He's the guy that parachuted out of a plane over Seattle somewhere with $200,000, and he's never been heard from since. And after that, there were all these sort of copycat things where people are like, well, wait a minute, I can do that. And one of these copycatters happens in June 1972, and it's a guy named Martin McNally. Okay, so Martin McNally is 28 years old. He lives outside of Detroit. He's a high school dropout. He was in the Navy. He kind of worked at a service station, but he's not really good at gainful employment. What he wants is some sort of easy criminal activity that will get him lots of money, and he's disappointed because all of his criminal dealings thus far haven't really been that successful. So he hears about D.B. Cooper on the radio, and he's like, that guy has got it. So he spends 4 or 5 months sort of researching this, and by researching it, I mean reading library books about parachutes and driving around the 5-state area to find out which airport has the worst security. Honestly, the answer is E, all of the above. Airport security is non-existent practically in 1972. There are no metal detectors. They can't search your bags. They're pretty lax about ID. And, you know, in some cases you can buy your ticket on the plane. So these skyjackings have been all going on, and really all they did was give the ticket agents a list of characteristics to look for where you might be a skyjacker if that doesn't really help. And the FAA is saying maybe we should put in metal detectors, maybe we should search luggage. And the airline companies are like, nah. If our passengers feel it's not glamorous and it's not fun and they have to wait in a line at all, then they'll just take Greyhound. So we would rather just take out these enormous insurance policies so that we can pay the skyjackers their money. But on the list of lousy airport security, McNally decides that the worst, or the best, depending on how you look at it, is at Lambert International in St. Louis. So he shows up there with these forged papers using the name Robert Wilson. He buys a ticket, he gets on this plane, and just like D.B. Cooper, he hands a note to the stewardess, to be a flight attendant now, but it's a stewardess then. I've got this gun, which he does. It's in this trombone case he brought on board. And he says, there's a bomb somewhere on this plane. So here are my demands. I need $502,500, which is very specific and over twice what D.B. Cooper asked for. He said, I need 5 parachutes, I need 2 harnesses for it, and I need a shovel. So Martin McNally has made these demands, and they're going to give it to him because that is what they do. But it's late on a Friday night. Banks are all closed. It's going to take some time to scare up $502,500. They've made an announcement to the rest of the passengers saying, ladies and gentlemen, one of our passengers needs to return to St. Louis. But I'm pretty sure everybody was like, ugh, we got skyjacked. So finally, they land in St. Louis, they've got the money, they bring him the parachutes and the harnesses, and he realizes he still doesn't know how to put it on. So he has to be like, I have another demand. I need someone to teach me how to use this parachute harness. By this point, this has been going on for hours. So it's on the news and everybody in the airport knows this is happening. So you've got the line of people at the, the glass window where you can look out onto the tarmac. They're all watching this plane out there that they know this hijacker is on. It's also on in the airport bar. And there's this guy named, is it David Handley? Or William Hanley, I can't remember. I will look and then I will put it right over here. But he's watching it in the bar and he is getting madder and madder and madder. And I kind of am guessing also drunker and drunker, because I cannot imagine that sober you would decide to do what this guy does, which is leave the airport, get into his 1971 Cadillac Eldorado and drive it at 80 miles an hour through the runway fence and into the plane, which has just been refueled, so it's full of jet fuel. So now the fire department has to run out there and spray the whole car with foam and hope that it doesn't explode. Hanley has, both of his jaws are broken, he's fractured his skull, he's got, crushed everything. He claims later to not remember the incident. But anyway, now the plane is compromised. McNally on board is like, I have another demand. I need a new plane. So they have to bring out a second jet, and then they have to go from one to the other. So by this point, he has released about 80 of the passengers, and he's only kept a few hostages. He's also got the flight crew and the stewardesses. And as they go from one plane to the other one, he's crouching down behind the stewardesses so that the FBI snipers can't get him. So they go back up in the air, and this time he's like, head for Toronto, because I'm just gonna skedaddle out the back of this airplane. So unsurprisingly, it's not too long after this whole thing that the airplane companies figure out, you know what, maybe we should make it so that those gangways only open from the outside. But at this point, they still open from the inside, and he's gonna jump out of it. He's going to go down with all his money and his shovel. He's gonna bury the money and he's come back and get it later. He's done his calculations as to when he should drop based on sort of the time of day it's gonna be, but there's been this whole delay, and now he doesn't really know. He was supposed to jump at midnight, now it's 4 in the morning. He doesn't know where he is. He's hoping to land basically over Detroit and be pretty much back home, and he's like, ugh, I hope I'm not over Lake Michigan. He's over Indiana, someplace. But he jumps out the plane, and somehow he does manage to get this parachute to open, but he doesn't do it right, and its spring load erupts into his face, busts his flight goggles, and he looks down and he sees his bag of $2,500 has separated from his belt loop or whatever, and it is just flying down away from him. He gets all busted up. He gives himself a concussion. He's broken, battered, bruised, doesn't have the money. He's got $300 in his pocket, and he just curls up in his parachute and goes to sleep. So he wakes up a couple of hours later, and there's helicopters all above that are looking for him. Keep in mind, he doesn't even know what state he's in. So at dusk, he finds a barbed wire fence and he climbs over it, and there is this 2-lane dirt road. And he sees a couple cars go by. They have Indiana license plates. He's like, okay. He walks for about an hour and a half, and then it's midnight, and this car stops about a quarter mile down the way. Guy gets out, and he's like, hey, you okay? The guy is the chief of police of the next town over, which is Peru, Indiana. And so McNally's like, oh yeah, I'm fine. I came here, I'm from Detroit. I came to see my brother. He got super drunk and beat me up. That's why I look like this. And the police chief is like, yeah, you do look like heck. Do you want to ride back into town? Because the police chief had been out at some event with his wife and they were just driving home. McNally says, yeah, that'd be great. Reed like quick pulls his gun out of his pocket and throws it, on the other side of the fence. And as he's driving back, the police chief says to him, man, you got to be careful on this road because it usually is really quiet, but there's been all this traffic now because they're looking for that skyjacker. Did you hear about him? And McNally's like, Ultimately, the chief of police takes him back into Peru, Indiana, and drops him off at the Peru Motor Lodge. And the woman at the desk is like, man, you're messed up. You're not that skyjacker, are ya? And he's like, no, no. By this time, they found the parachute, they found the gun, they found the bag of money. This farmer found it in his bean field and returned it. But also, Peru, Indiana isn't big. The Motor Lodge is where you stay. So that's where all the FBI agents are staying too. So McNally's like, I gotta get out of here. And he finally gets his friend Walter Petlakowski on the phone. He's like, dude, you gotta come pick me up. I'm in Peru, Indiana. And Petlakowski's like, yeah, I saw the news. I thought you were dead. But he does. He comes down and he picks him up. They get out of there and drive back to Detroit to McNally's family home, which is surrounded by FBI agents because they have found a fingerprint and they've matched it to his Navy records, so they know who he is. The crime, as it's actually known, skyjacking, is known as air piracy. They give him 2 life sentences. And he's like, whoa, but I only skyjacked once. And they're like, yeah, but you needed 2 planes. Core. Turn upside down, cut, but not all the way through, so they look like flowers. He gets sent to Marion Penitentiary, which is in Marion, Illinois, which is sort of the first supermax prison, and he meets Garrett Trapnell. All right, the mega head part is done. It is made ahead, and now it is time for the party. And this is just a shirt I have in my closet. What I will try and do is have their cocktail hour before Bloody Marys and crispy low-calorie wafers. We all know what that means. Melba toast. Skinny toast. It doesn't taste like a sacrifice. Okay. I'm not a big Bloody Mary fan. I don't like tomato juice particularly, so we'll see. But I did find a recipe from 1972 that features that old stalwart V8. There was a different one I found that actually just called for ketchup. I'm not doing that. So, Garrett Trapnell is this other prisoner that is in the big house with Martin McNally, and it's not his first time. He is in there for a skyjacking. He had demanded a ton of money. He had also demanded a personal pardon from Richard Nixon. This is also like a week after Watergate, so Nixon's got his own stuff to deal with. I've never bought one of these little bottles before, by the way, either. Did you know they're only 99 cents? Pretty economical. So Trapnell is also a bank robber. He is also a con man. He is also a bigamist. Apparently, he at one point has 6 different wives, and he belongs to a different country club with all of them. I wish I liked Bloody Marys because it seems unfair that if you don't go for tomato juice, your drinks don't come with snacks. Cheers. Oh, God. You know what this needs? Some Melba Toast. Get yourself a drink and a snack. Meet me in the lounge and I'll finish telling you about Garrett Trapnell. So, Garrett Trapnell meets Martin McNally. They meet up. They're fast friends. And they make this agreement that whichever one of them gets out first, they're going to skyjack a plane and break the other one out of jail. Now, Trapnell is sort of a celebrity at this point because in 1976, a book comes out about him. What is it called? It's like Garrett Trapnell, adventurer, skyjacker, con man, bank robber, lover. And this book is pretty popular. And as can sometimes happen, a bunch of women on the outside are like, wow, he sounds like a charming daredevil. He just needs a good woman to keep him in line. And one day, he comes to Martin McNally and he's like, hey, how'd you like to bust out of here on a helicopter? Okay, so it's time to put together the salad. Amazingly, I managed not to ruin my dinner with Melba Toasts. But they do say that with my dinner, I should have some rosé. Right on the next page to the skinny toast, they've got this ad for jugs of Lake Country pink wine. That's not what I bought. So one of the women that starts writing to Garrett Trapnell is named Barbara Oswald. He starts writing back and he's very charismatic. You don't get 6 wives by being dull. She gets put on his approved visitors list. She starts showing up to visit him in jail with her teenage daughters. So she hires this helicopter. She tells the pilot, who's a Vietnam vet, that she's gonna buy some property, but it's in a flood zone, so she needs to be flown to look at this property she might buy. But on the way, she pulls a gun on him. And he's like, there's no way I'm getting out of this alive. None at all. So as they're getting ready to land, he says, you know what, these doors are really hard to open. You should get started. And as she goes to open the door, she switches the gun from one hand to the other. Her hand's off the trigger for a minute and he grabs that gun. And she's like, doesn't matter, I've got another one. She goes for her bag and he shoots her in the head 5 times. So Trapnell and McNally see that the helicopter is coming and they run to the specified place, but it doesn't land there. It lands over by the administration building and the door opens and this guy gets out and they're like, oh no. So McNally at this point pretty much lays down and he's like, you know what? I'm never getting out of jail. I'm just gonna take what's coming to me. I'm done. Do you think Garrett Trapnell thought that? Well, of course he didn't, because there's still dessert. Did you guess what the 1972 locale dessert was going to be? And if you did you guess that it was green grapes and brie? Because if you did, you won yourself a Cadillac Eldorado. God, I love it when history is exactly what we think it's like. Like I said, McNally's done. He's out. But Trapnell's like, no, I'm going to represent myself in court. And everyone tells him this is a terrible idea. You can't beat this even with a great lawyer. And he's like, I know. He doesn't actually want to represent himself. He knows he's not getting off. What he wants are attorney privileges because that includes private meetings with the witnesses. One of the witnesses is Barbara's 17-year-old daughter, Robin, and he convinces her to skyjack a plane. Now, she is, first off, a kid, but she is also really vulnerable at this point. Her mom has just died in a really horrible way. She is depressed, she is suicidal. Trapnell is completely taking advantage of this. But even he is like, yeah, you know, she's a little unstable. Maybe she shouldn't have any weapons. What she has is she has duct taped a bunch of railroad flares and a doorbell to her body. But she is not a hardened criminal. And they get some FBI negotiators on the plane, and they are able, after a number of hours, to talk her down. So finally, at this point, Trapnell is like, well, it was a good run. And he dies in prison in, I think, 1993 of emphysema. Martin McNally is out. I don't think he's even on parole anymore. I'm not quite sure how 3 life sentences leads to out and about. And that is the story of Martin McNally and my low-calorie diet dinner, which was really pretty delicious.